Are live for episode 142 of the Wise Guys podcast. I am back as your host, Brandon Capozziello, and here with me again is Mr. Adrian Pineres, and we are here to give you another mixed martial arts combat sports episode that we love so dearly. And dear God, has the landscape of mixed martial arts just changed? I believe so. We are going to dive deep into it. The PFL has acquired Bellator MMA this morning. Don Davis was on the MMA Hour this afternoon with Ariel Helwani. Did about, I think, an hour-long interview and discussed all things and answered all questions that he was able to answer, obviously, at this time. He did reveal that the deal was done literally this past Saturday. And we now have the news. So we're going to discuss that. We're going to get into another thing with PFL. PFL 10 is this Friday night. Their pay-per-view event, $50. We're gonna dive into that, a little preview of that event, headlined by OAM, former UFC fighter who's been on a freaking tear since joining the PFL. I believe he's undefeated at either 5-0 or 6-0 in the PFL. We're gonna discuss who Brendan Allen should fight next, and maybe dive into some other things. But Adrian, how are you doing this fine Monday night?
Sorry, I'm just pulling up the information here. I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Just ready to get going. Like you said, woke up this morning, got the training, and then I saw my phone. I saw the news, and wow, it's crazy because we're really getting to dive into the details when we get to these points. But I mean, I really hope that we have a real significant player that is in the UFC that is, gets the fans excited for big names, big fights, exciting fights. More conversations about this sport that we all love, that's been growing for the last 20, 25, 30 years. And, I'm just super excited for the possibilities that this could actually, do for the sport.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's deep news. Big news, I should say. Sorry for hitting the mic there. PFL acquiring Bellator. I mean, listen, we kind of knew ahead of time that this was imminent. It's been a little rocky road. Don Davis alluded to it on the MMA Hour, where he said it kind of started, I believe, in January talks of doing some things, and the reporting throughout the year had been like up and down. It looks like PFL is going to acquire Bellator, then it doesn't look like they're going to acquire Bellator. Then, now we get the news now. PFL has acquired Bellator actually right after their event too. Bellator 301. So, because Bellator 301 was for last Friday, so that means this deal was done literally the day after, on
the
Saturday,
morning after,
last week. So that's just even more crazy. But before we actually dive into the entire discussion of that, if you're watching this video now, please give us a like, thumbs up, subscribe if you are new, share the content, and follow us on all our social medias. Links are in the description for the Wise Guys account, my personal account, and Adrian's personal account. So go ahead and follow all that, and obviously, as always, comment along with us and tell us what you think about the discussion points that we're going to have today, especially the PFL acquiring Bellator. What do you think? What is the biggest takeaway? And since that's the question I'm going to offer to our viewers first, Adrian, I'm going to offer that same question to you first. What is your biggest takeaway from this news that PFL has now acquired Bellator?
My biggest takeaway from this news is honestly that we'll have more fighters that are going to be able to get in the cage that weren't able to before. And I believe Don said on the interview with Ariel Helwani that, he referenced me, that Fight Form had, I believe, 30 fighters ranked on there for now the PFL.
And you were talking about how in the top 30 for
top 30
MMA centric or centric whatever it was. I hadn't heard about it before actually. That their independent rankings, that now PFL, since acquiring Bellator, now has I believe a majority of the top 30, I think is what he said. I think he gave a percentage. I think it was like 80% or something like that of the top 30 in I guess throughout the divisions or somewhere in totality. I don't know if he clarified that, but he did specify and say in the top 5 though, the UFC
still owns that. Yes, absolutely. But I think that, like I said, we were talking about before we went live. I think that this just gives us more exciting fights. It gives us something that, honestly, fight fans deserve. Fight fans have been waiting for. It's like a little mini Ali act in the sense where, Don was very open. He was very open-minded. He wanted everybody to continue to fight there. He wants everybody, whoever's going to show up and perform is going to have a job, come 2024, 2025 in these next coming seasons. And we'll get into the details of the deal and what these fighters are going to be able to choose and what they are going to get into if they want to, and if Bellator really stays afloat. But I think that, first initial thoughts were more fights. I'm excited.
Yeah, listen, my obvious first my reactions to this has always been I just want to know what's going on with the fighters. That's all. Are they going? Are they staying? How many are staying? How many are leaving? Let me know. I need to know that. And that question was answered. All 210 of Bellator's fighters are going and now are under the umbrella of the PFL. So that answers that question for me. I tweeted about it and I was like, damn, tad disappointed because I did want to see a kind of and this is a little selfish on my point, but I want to see a little bit of an open season in free agency where you see some of these guys and girls go in free agency and see, what their open market value is. Does the UFC get them? I know UFC would obviously be interested in a ton of their top ranking fighters. Like off the top of my head, I know AJ McKee would be an instant one. And AJ McKee would be interested to go there. I actually, hint, I believe AJ McKee, whenever his contract is over, I believe he'll be headed to the UFC. I know.
Let me actually pull that up. Let me see if I can find exactly when his contract expires. But keep going.
There's a bunch of guys in Bellator that would obviously jump on the and girls that would jump on the opportunity to go to PFL. To go to the UFC. But what I really want to get into is just, there was a lot that was discussed today, and that's going to take us, forever to get into that. So, I do want to throw out there, go check out. I would recommend highly go check out the Ariel Helwani interview with Don Davis on the MMA Hour. Go over there and check that out because you'll find out all the information you possibly need from that interview. You get a sense from say something, Adrian?
Yeah, so I just wanted to touch back onto that AJ McKee deal. AJ McKee re-signed with the Bellator beginning at the year and the January 12th. That's when the news broke.
Yep.
He signed a 6-fight multi-year contract. So however many fights he's fought since then.
I believe 2. I think he's had 2 fights.
Okay, so he's only got 4 fights left.
Yep.
Yeah. And I guess I think this will actually be a pretty good thing for, like I said, for like you have a good point. We'd love to see AJ McKee in the UFC and fighting these talent, but I think having somebody like AJ McKee to spearhead this movement and
listen,
could be an advocate for this league if he actually enjoys it. And
I see know. I know I'm going off that, and we'll go right back to the PFL news, but I see a perfect shot to the top of AJ McKee going to the top of the 155-pound division in PFL now, I guess you want to call it, and beating a Usman Nurmagomedov, who I know is suspended for right now, but he'll be back by the time AJ gets to the top of that division. So I see that, and if he's able to beat an Usman Nurmagomedov, you already know that I got one of the family members' heads. Now I'm coming for the rest, and obviously you want to go for the head honcho guy, and he's over in the other company. But back to the PFL Bellator deal. Listen, you're going to see, I believe it was 32 fights or events per year by that company now. Me and Adrian were discussing a little bit of it. Still a tad confusing in some points where he Don Davis said, I believe there's going to be 2 Bellator International Series events per year. And both of those are going to have, I believe this is what he said, 2 title fights per those events. So the main event and co-main event are going to have championship fights of those events. Those events are going to be worldwide, globally, right? He specifically said that. Like, so I would imagine you're going to see those Bellator events, those 2 per year, are going to happen overseas. Majority, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to interject. Yeah, he did say that what he hears, because he hears the fans. So anybody, like, continue to speak your mind. Like, sometimes people think that these these organizations aren't listening because they're multi-billion-dollar people, and respectfully so. Sometimes they could listen, and sometimes they don't have to. But Don clearly listens, because the PFL fans have been asking for more international fights. He brought up, like you said, Brandon, these individual Bellator promotion fights, these 2 fights a year that will be title fights, excuse me, not even just exclusively to the Bellator fighters, but to PFL fighters as well. Anybody on the roster gets picked.
And we should probably
little side note, and I would love this, they get to wear whatever they want to. They're bringing the creativity of the fighters back to the octagon. Just for these 2, just for the Bellator fights. Yes, absolutely. The leagues will still have their uniforms. They still want to have the leagues. But I love that little tidbit, because, like I said, they're listening to the fans.
Bellator has always had that. Scott Coker over at Bellator, he's always allowed the fighters to do that. But and we can discuss it. I mean, Aaron Bronstetter, I guess, did a pretty good job of, like, live tweeting certain big points of the interview and stuff like that. So per Don Davis, the 2024 PFL season will consist of the same 6 weight classes at this season. The Bellator International Champions Series, that's a mouthful, will have all weight classes. All Bellator fighters are now PFL fighters, with 50% moving to PFL season and 50% moving to Champions Series. So that's an important key point. I didn't hear the 50% on the Helwani interview. I'm pretty sure he just said fighters get to basically choose. I think that probably 50% was just a number that was thrown out there. But fighters get to choose. Do they want to be in the league, or do they want to be in the Champions Series? So he gave the example of an Anthony Pettis, right? In his late 30s, probably doesn't want to fight in a season format where he's got to fight 4 times, and I believe it's like a 6 or 8 month period. He wants to fight 2 times per year, and those will be, I think, pay-per-view, because he also said there are going to be pay-per-view events with the PFL per year. So that's an important key point. Davis tells Ariel that the new look Bellator International Champion Series will likely have its own television rights separate from the PFL season. So these 2 things could be on different platforms, or they could be on the same platform. Either way, we're looking at 2 revenue streams there. That's just smart business by them, right? Davis says that the PFL's next TV deal will be announced 2 weeks after this week's PFL Championship card. So we're going to be finding out that news of where the PFL's home will be. Will it be a new home, or will it stay on ESPN? We're going to find that out in early December, possibly the first or second week of December. And I think he said about Bellator's news, we're going to find that out maybe at least before Christmas, I think he said, if not after Christmas in the new year. Anything you want to react to that after of what I've said so far, Adrian?
No, I think we touched upon pretty much everything. I think, like I said, I'm just really excited to see more fighting. Like, about the content. I've heard a lot of MMA fans. I think a lot of MMA fans can agree that some of these fight nights and some of these UFC pay-per-views are, the undercards. Some of them are, they're all right. They're pretty good, but some of them are who's, and they're not really that entertaining. And I think that adding more fighters, like I said, ranked in the top 30, that are just going to be consistently fighting all the time, like, and bringing more food to the table to these MMA fans who have been starving. I think that, it's always going to be a good thing. So I'm excited. Just really happy.
Yeah, that's David. So to move on to the next point of this, Davis tells Hawani that they are hoping Francis Ngannou, we were talking about this before the show, Adrian, Francis Ngannou's PFL debut will be a mixed rules fight against Deontay Wilder, and that the second and third options, which he did not disclose, obviously, I should probably clear that up. So he wants Wilder versus Ngannou in a mixed rules fight under PFL's banner. So that would be Francis's first MMA fight, you want to say, under the PFL banner. And he did specify and said the second and third options that aren't Deontay Wilder, if that fight so happens doesn't happen, are not so appealing. And he said that I think twice, and impactfully the way he said it. So obviously there's a very good, you got Deontay, you can imagine that, right? Deontay's up here, and then the two other ones are like, oh, we don't give a crap about this, right?
Yeah.
He also says to speak on their other big star that they've got, or I should star, Jake Paul. His PFL debut will be in October, December of 2024. So next year, right? Next late year. And he also said that a Canadian broadcast deal is lined up. They got 3 bidders for that coming out. And finally, and that's also important news too for the international folks, or I should say actually for the American folks wanting to watch like PFL Europe and stuff like that. I've apparently heard that there's no way to watch it in America. I guess the only way to watch it is, through illegally streaming it. There's no broadcast partner, I guess, like a DAZN or an ESPN Plus or something like that. So that's obviously important to them. I would imagine they're going to get that cleared up in the next coming months. I do remember him saying, I should say, Don Davis, that the PFL the next season, because the final season of the PFL is this Friday, right?
Yeah.
He said that the next season is going to start around April of next year, I believe is what he said, and they're hoping that the Bellator International Championship Series, that's going to be a mouthful to say, dude. I gotta find a way to shorten that. Is going, and they're targeting March. They want it to be February, March time for that. So expect a lot of things to be popping off very soon. And final news that I think is the biggest news, right? Or I don't know about the biggest news, but Don Davis did say, because again, the final fight of her contract is this Friday, and I should be saying the face of not Bellator, the face of PFL, the face of PFL that has been the face of PFL basically since it's in the past couple of years. Actually, I should say, Kayla Harrison. Her final fight for the PFL is this Friday on her contract, and Don Davis did say that he has an expectation that Kayla Harrison will re-sign with the PFL, and possibly we can finally get that. I think the number one fight that all fans can point to that say, with this acquisition, what is the number one fight that we all want to see, that we all want to be like, well, this is the fight we want to see? I think we can all agree it's Kayla Harrison versus Chris Cyborg. Like, I think that is the agreed upon fight that we all want to see. I mean, you've got the arguable greatest female fighter of all time in Chris Cyborg versus this up-and-comer who is on a complete tirade, who obviously lost her last fight, controversy there. She beat the girl twice before, so yeah. And she would be coming off a win, obviously, here. Like, two titans going at it. That's the fight that I think we're all eyeballing to see, is the number one fight. Because other than that, it's really just you kind of look at and you go, okay, who else do I want to see? Because I'm trying to forget if OAM is a 155. I think he's a 155, or if I'm not mistaken. So I guess another important big fight you could do OAM
155.
Okay, he is. Okay, so there you go. So 155 is pretty good. You got OAM, you got Clay Collard there. You got guys like that who can go after guys like Usman and Agent McKee, like I said, Patricio Pitbull if he moves up, Patricky Pitbull, guys like that at 155. So that's exciting times there. And yeah, so I say all that to hand it off to you, Adrian. Anything you got to get off your chest, mate?
Just one last thing. They did also mention that some of these guys would be kind of left a little bit hanging because they did not have a weight class. Don't quote me on which one
For
exactly
the
it
no,
is.
no. So that started from what I said, Adrian. It was so the seasons are gonna stay with the 6 weight classes.
Yeah.
But but Bellator International Series are gonna have all
Copy,
weight
copy,
classes. So
copy,
like your
copy,
guys like
copy.
Johnny Eblin and Patchy Mix, the
Yep,
135
yep.
and 185, they will be able to compete on the Bellator series. And I would imagine they're going to expand and put those divisions in there because you got guys like a Johnny Eblin and guys in that 185-pound division. You got a 135-pound division that's pretty deep as well. From coming in from Bellator, you want to have those guys in there consistently too. So yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, definitely we'll see.
Yep. And the lightweight Grand Prix obviously was going on too, and that possibly might just collapse because didn't sound like Don Davis was kind of for together, but and obviously Scott Coker's job is kind of in talks. Don Davis reported that he said he wants Coker to stay, but they're in constant conversation. They're discussing what they want to go moving forward. But this is exciting times. Listen, I know Don Davis kind of to his horn. 5 years from now, he wants to be the co-leader in this sport, right next to the UFC. I don't see that. Got to be honest with you, I really don't see that. I see the UFC as a powerhouse, and the only way the PFL is going to be able to compete with the UFC is they have to get their own Conor McGregor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the UFC obviously
which they're capable of.
They could be. I mean, we have yet to see a lightning strike twice, right? Conor McGregor was a once in a possible generation.
I mean, we did. Guy. We saw Ronda do it. Like Ronda was
in
on
a different way, though. In a different way,
yeah,
like
exactly.
Female wise, yes, but have we
why
seen another female sell like her?
No, not at all. But I think that this is why this is possible because not only is the PFL absolutely kind of different in its own way,
it is.
But with that being said, you allow energy and room for different things to happen and stick. You can throw different things at the wall and see what sticks. So instead of just being a shadow organization or a straight up copy to the UFC, or basically just doing the same thing that the UFC does, except they do it better and have better fighters.
Yeah,
you're now throwing your own a little bit of spice into it, a little bit of individuality to it that I think I'm liking a lot, and I think that is some fans are going to start resonating with too.
He did mention he kind of got an idea of the season format from March Madness, where he said I don't watch college basketball, but I watch March Madness, and that's what he kind of alluded to, where it's like maybe I can get guys who are just sports fans that maybe they're not MMA fans, just to watch the seasons and stuff like that. I don't think it translate quite the same in MMA. I think it's just different. Obviously from a mainstream perspective, it doesn't get the same type of hype, but yeah, like I said, it's going to take time, and for the getting a Conor is going to be a very tough. I mean, obviously both brands have been searching for another Conor, and they've been pretty unlucky. Like if you really look at the pay-per-view draws of the UFC, Conor is by far like untouchable,
far and away.
There hasn't been like Nate Diaz is a superstar, Jorge Masvidal superstar. They weren't consistently doing 1 million pay-per-view buys. Conor could fight a broomstick and sell over 1 million pay-per-views. That's definitely how like Brock.
Conor also had brought an entire nation over with him.
He did.
So that's why I also think that PFL is doing two things really well. They're doing two things really well. They're doing the championship. They're trying to do a Champions League thing where they bring around they have leagues in respective countries, PFL Africa, PFL Europe, PFL wherever, right? Get the winner of those respective leagues, and then they all fight each other in one Champions League. I think that's a really good idea. So then you're not naturally bringing homegrown talent and homegrown fans to those respective, Champions League games. And on top of that, now, like I said, two things right. That's the first thing, bringing other nations and more eyes into the show like they did with Conor. But now getting more of their fighters in front of screens, in front of cameras, because in this fight game, a lot of times the real people that are really attractive and really good at like getting people to like shit, that was a highlight and I just watched some crazy shit, are the people you got to pay to watch, unless you don't pay to watch it. You know what I'm saying? So unless, but you have to know about it. You got to be in the know-how. Somebody told you about somebody. But Conor McGregor was on everybody's social media, everybody's YouTube clips, watching him flaming people, and everybody was just going out of their way to watch and listen to what he was doing. But I think that it's kind of different. So with like sports, right? I'm a Knicks fan. How was I a Knicks fan? My dad was watching it on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I got the exposure from the Knicks. I wasn't gonna go out of my way. I was a young kid. I couldn't pay for nothing and watch nothing. So I think that, and and also now with us being grown, that we make our own money, we're not gonna choose to put our money down on something we don't care about. But if you turn on the TV and you see somebody that you actually enjoy fighting, and they give you a good fight, and then I like this, and then you become an MMA fan. And then maybe you don't like certain fighters over others, and then you become fans of certain fighters, and then the ball's rolling. But I think the PFL is doing a good job by pushing the ball first.
Yeah,
and I like that.
It's just with Connor, it's just so different. Like again, we have never seen a guy who could speak so eloquent, like the way he did. Like Chael, you could say that, but like even when you listen to Chael, like you could somehow get like an inkling, and maybe this is 2020 hindsight of this is kind of memorize, like this was practice, right? What he's saying. What Connor, I mean, you pull up the line, they came off as authentic, like he just thought of that. Even if he didn't, even if he was planning it behind closed doors, it never seemed like Connor was just, I'm just doing this. Right.
Yeah,
Maybe
reading
in
no
the Floyd
cards.
stuff, maybe a little bit in the Floyd stuff, but because they kind of like they leaned into it there. But like the fucking Nate Diaz stuff with the gang signs with one hand and balloons like that, that's just off the top. I'm gonna go into this guy's favela and kill everybody he loved. Like what? Who the fuck says that shit? Like, come on. So you did mention a nation behind him, right? And there's this guy who the UFC kind of, people are saying, missed the boat on. They had him signed. Shit was messed up. He was actually supposed to fight on the UFC Paris card, I believe, in September earlier this year.
He did.
Cendric.
Oh no, not the UFC, not the UFC. Excuse me.
Okay,
The PFL one. The PFL one.
PFL one he did. I think he was supposed to be on the UFC one though.
Yeah. He was.
His name is
I guess alleged. I don't know. No,
Cedric,
don't call me out.
Cedric Doumbé. From France, Cameroonian. Fucking this guy, Francis Ngannou, Cameroonian, France. What are they going to France for all the time? I think I've seen a couple of his highlights. Obviously, he's a finisher. He's a kickboxer. He's exciting. He's 31 years old. He was born in August. Augusts are Leos. I'm a Leo, so I understand that there might be a little confidence of that cockiness there. I've never heard him talk, so I don't know if he's got that capability. Because that's really what's going to differentiate you, right? Like,
you can tell when he fights. He's got a little showmanship to him.
Yeah, Connor was phenomenal in the cage, right? Like, he's incredible, right? Like Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley is incredible in the cage. His striking is beautiful. It's elegant. It's sweet. It's crisp. You love to watch that style, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what he's kind of finding out right now is there's a little bit of a buffer where he can't talk like Connor. And it's pretty evident he can't, right? Like, he's a little bit of a good trash talker, but he's obviously not. And that's where the separating factor is for me. So I don't know about Cedric with that case, though.
Let me bring up something as well. Like, I feel like as a fighter, we have this kind of discourse with an audience. We have this kind of like this contradiction where we're putting on a show for them, right? They want to see this violence, and sometimes people don't. But what we do, and especially them, I want to say them more than me, because they have done it way longer, whatever. But so props to them. But for real, what they do is beautiful because it's an art and it's a technique, and some people don't realize that until they realize it. You know what I'm saying? Because violence sometimes it's not a pretty thing. Sometimes you watch some of your fighters get hurt, and it hurts to watch. You feel it in your heart. So but you understand that it was executed to perfection and that these guys put their time in their lives and sacrificed so much. And it's just, that's where the conversation needs to happen. And that's where the mic, it becomes such a huge thing. It's a bridge from the casual fan to the mind of an MMA fighter. That's why people can connect to a guy like Joe Pyfer, because Joe Pyfer told us his story. That's why guys can connect to people like Habib, because Habib, even though he's not from America, but we know that what he did was a struggle to get to where he was. Us people as fans, we appreciate struggle. We appreciate somebody who can give us their story, lay it out to us, and we want to be a part of that ride. So if you can take that microphone and really be that bridge to the audience and do it in a creative and fun way, you'll sell the tickets. You'll get your pay-per-view points.
Yeah, you can get it there, but like all the great pro wrestlers will say, you always need somebody to get you over that's better than you. So if you ain't beat nobody, if you ain't make nobody, you ain't beat nobody, I should say. Next up, so let's discuss a little bit of the PFL 10. Is this Friday night? PFL's championship pay-per-view. We'll start with from the bottom and go to the top. So we got Ray Cooper the third is taking on Derek Brunson.
Yeah,
coming over from UFC.
Just signed first fight.
That's going to be interesting. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. Derek Brunson is, I think we can all clearly know, Derek Brunson has been over the hill for a little bit.
He's been talking a lot.
Yeah, he's gotten wins over guys, but I mean that Darren Till win was a shitty win. Darren Till was injured going into that fight, and just Darren Till was on his downward spiral at that point anyway. Derek Brunson's, he's got one round. After that round, he's pretty much gassed. His striking is good. Nothing you're going to really be super fearful from. He's got power. He's a very good wrestler, but because his cardio sucks, that wrestling really leads you nowhere and only will actually accelerate your gas tank emptying even faster. So, yeah, I honestly think I think Ray Cooper probably gets the job done. He's younger. He's 30 years old. I think he gets the job over Derek Brunson. I think Derek Brunson is probably going to be coming in here thinking, I'm the UFC guy. I was ranked in the top 10 last time I was in the UFC. Like, I'm this guy. And then I think he's going to overlook this guy.
He could definitely end up doing that. I think, but I think also as well, we didn't see his striking or any of his wrestling take a step back either. It was just the gas tank that really concerns the fans. So I think if he and his team are looking at that situation and are addressing it accordingly in camp before this fight actually happens, we could see a different Derek Brunson in that cage. However, if it is much of the same, he is overlooking his opponent. I'm the UFC guy. I should be able to take these guys down because, this is PFL and Bellator or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And whatever. He will, but I think he'll get beat. But I think that Derek Brunson is coming off of his own losses too. So I think this could be anything could happen here. I actually think that Derek Brunson could squeak this one out. I think he wants to get back in the win column.
Well, yeah, I would imagine he wants to. Like, I'm looking at his win streak. Like, he finished Shabaznian, and that was really more eye-opening on Shabaznian's side that we all realized, okay, Shabaznian's not that guy that we expected him to be. Then he fought Kevin Holland. I'm pretty sure that fight was on short notice, where Kevin Holland was just taking short notice fights, and Kevin Holland not really putting out his best effort, in my opinion. I think that was the fight where he was talking to Habib in the crowd too. So that was before he even really started working on his wrestling even more, and it was just a shitty performance more from Kevin Holland. Like, Kevin Holland didn't show up, in my opinion. Then the Darren Till fight, where Darren came in injured, and it was just a shitty performance, honestly, from both guys. It looked like two old men just going at it in that fight. I'm going to be completely honest with you.
1,000%. I just think that I think he realizes that he got bounced out from the UFC for a reason.
No, he asked for his release. He asked for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought he was released. Excuse me.
Well, he did get released, but he asked for his release. He wanted to
copy. Well, No, I guess also, I mean, at the end of the day, too, the UFC doesn't just let people go if they don't
They
think you're
want them.
good
Yeah,
enough. You know
exactly.
what I'm saying? So if you get released by the UFC and the UFC is like, all right, bet, bye, you're not interesting. I don't want you anyway. That helps us save money.
Yep.
It would be a pretty much an eye opening for opener for the guy, but I understand. I'm just gonna go either way. It's a fight game.
I think Ray Cooper gets the KO or TKO finish. He's got 16 knockouts on his resume, 7 submissions, but I think he gets the finish. I'm telling you, Derek Brunson. I've watched this. This man is always susceptible to getting a big shot. But next up, we're getting a catchweight fight. I can't believe this isn't the co-main event. I mean, I understand there's no championship on the line, but come on. Kayla Harrison, the star of the PFL. The face of the PFL is taking on Aspen Ladd. Short notice fight. It was supposed to be Julia Budd. Some things came out there. Apparently, Julia Budd didn't sign a contract or negated the contract, did some funny shit, and then got released. Now she's a free agent. So Aspen Ladd stepping up. Kayla Harrison's fighting her. Catch weight of 150. Aspen, I believe, is in her second fight in the PFL. Oh no, third fight. Oh Jesus Christ, she's been in there for a minute. Okay. Yeah, she's got a win over Julia Julia Budd, split decision. Lost her second fight by a majority against Olena Kolinish. I'm not gonna try it. And then she got a submission win, armbar, in her last fight against Carolina Sobek this past June. Now she's fighting Kayla. This is Kayla's comeback fight. She's been off for how long has she been out for?
I think about to be a
Whole
year.
year.
Yeah, I was gonna say about to be a year.
So what's Friday's date?
November 25th.
24th.
Yeah.
So basically a year, almost a year to the day.
5 days.
of last year was her last fight against Larissa Pacheco, where she lost a decision. Lost a decision fight to her. Her first fight ever, she lost. She's coming back. She's fighting Aspen Ladd. Final fight of her contract. She's motivated. Listen, I'm not going to bet against Kayla. I've seen Aspen Ladd. Aspen Ladd's got power. I give her that. She's got power. She's good. She's good. That's as best you're going to get from me. Kayla Harrison by finish. That's all you can from me. Kayla Harrison by finish.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely do. Kayla Harrison, we were speaking about her before. She's helped carry this promotion for a long time, and I think that she's gonna try to come back and get that get avenge that loss very, very soon, or get to that Chris Cyborg fight with a win on her belt. So
yeah, I mean, listen, she's either gonna do that or she's gonna translate this into a UFC run, which I think actually probably staying in the PFL is probably the smartest decision now since Amanda's not there in the UFC.
There's less exciting
145. There's no
one.
There's no 145 division in the UFC. Like there's literally nothing there. So the best decision would to stay in the PFL. You got Cyborg there. You got Lee McCourt, I believe, who was supposed to fight Cyborg next. You got an Aspen Ladd there, so you can obviously add some more people. But I think it's probably smart now to stay in the PFL unless she's looking. Listen, I'm never against moving to the UFC. I think it's the smartest decision always. If you're a big name like a Kayla Harrison or a big name, she's not a big name yet, but in her circle, in the circle she's in is a big name.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's only smart to go to the UFC and capitalize on it. And usually if you don't, it kind of speaks volumes where either you don't believe you're ready yet, or you like to be a big fish in a small pond and not a big fish in a big pond. You know what I mean? Like, so it kind of speaks. That's why I'm now looking like when AJ McKee's deal is up, I'm expecting a move to the UFC. Because this is like you're kind of going into your prime years now. Like it's kind of like, okay, we got to go now. Like, what are we doing here?
Go
ahead.
Our only counterpoint to that would be, what if they because we don't know what's going on in the negotiation, right? Yeah. Like, obviously, we would love to see Francis stay in the UFC, but that didn't happen for a reason. Cedric Doumbé, same thing. We were just talking about.
Yeah, we know why Francis is not in the UFC, though. Yeah.
Exactly. But, we didn't hear the conversation. We would love to be a fly on the wall, that expression. You know what I'm saying? The same thing with Cedric Doumbé. You would think he'd be in the UFC, but he's not. What happened in the room that stopped that from happening?
Yeah.
What is the PFL offering that the UFC is not offering? That maybe that is what ends up turning the tide on a decision that AJ Key makes later
Well, again, yeah. I
after this
mean,
fight.
listen,
So who knows? Or Kayla Harrison after she's done. Who
they
knows?
they offer a lot. They pay more. They offer more. They offer more pay-per-view points. I believe he said 50% split of the pay-per-views, which is insanely high. Um, Fighter control. You get to do a lot more stuff, have a lot more freedom and stuff like that. Even though the UFC doesn't take away your freedom, you're allowed to do a lot of outside sponsor things and stuff like that. They don't take anything of that away. But yeah, but with the UFC, they obviously this is what the UFC's offer is. We are the UFC. That's all I gotta say. We're the
Yeah.
UFC. Like, do you want to fight for the biggest promotion on the biggest stage? That's it. That's it. Because again, we love these moves of PFL and Bellator, right? It's not gonna happen unless the UFC has an insane collapse that is unforeseen. They will never be co-leaders and they will never be the leader of mixed martial arts. It's the UFC's. Okay, it's the UFC's game to lose. And I don't expect them to lose. Dana White's not a loser. All right. He's not going to lose this. They've strived forward. Billion-dollar company, multi-billion-dollar company, finally on the worldwide leader of sports of ESPN. Like, you don't. So it's great and all, but like I said, if you believe you're that person, if you believe you're that guy, if you believe you're that chick, well, then what is there to lose? Because, yeah, the PFL can offer you more money, but if you believe you're that person, then the money's not a problem because you should be able to make that money anyway in the UFC, and you're going to get the exposure that the PFL cannot offer you. Can't. They can't offer you that. So
I think it would have to be a point of like Francis did, get your name out there first and then do what you need to do with for the fighters like he is doing instead of the other way around.
Yeah,
so get
Francis,
your name value and then do it instead of, let me stay here and stay loyal to an organization where, I'm going to make a lot of money, but I could make more and do more and be, a great, or be, if you don't care about that, cool. You want to make money, set your family up still, that's, there's who knows what's going on in these people's mind, but I see what you're saying too.
Yeah,
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, well, and Francis again. I mean, Francis isn't a big name either. He's a big name in the MMA space. He's not a seller. I can show you the numbers of he's not a seller. And yeah, with Francis, we all know it was more. It wasn't the money, wasn't the problem. It was perks. Francis wanted the perks. Francis wanted a say in what happened. He wanted to be able to box. He wanted a fighter to be on the commission so that when decisions are made, there's a fighter on there. He wanted all of these things. He wanted to fight in Africa. These are the reasons why Francis is not in the UFC. The main reason obviously is the boxing match, right? The UFC and the fighter on the UFC was never going to give him that one. The other stuff they would have acquiesced to, but it's boxing and the fighter on the commission that was not going to, or the group, whatever the fuck you want to call it, but that's
the fighter pay, yeah. Or the fighters.
Next up, we got a guy I don't even really, Josh Silveira taking on Impa Kasanganai. I know him. The only reason I know him, which is a bad way to be the only reason I know him, is the Joaquin Buckley viral knockout. He was the guy on the receiving end of that. Impa. He's actually got, I believe, a couple of wins since being in the PFL in a row. Yeah, he's actually on a 4-fight win streak. Good for him, man. Good for him. Because it sucks to be that guy, right? Like, it sucks to be that guy known that you're on the receiving end of that viral knockout, right? At light heavyweight, which is interesting. Hopefully he gets the job done. I'm always for Impa.
You like the underdog story.
Well, no, I'm just saying, you got
that
you're known only for getting knocked out in a viral moment. That fucking sucks, man. So it's
think about Benson Henderson. A lot of people only know Benson Henderson from the Showtime kick, unless you're a real MMA fan.
Yeah, but like Impa, Benson Henderson,
or Ben Askren.
Benson's
Ben
a little
Askren.
bigger. We know Ben Askren. Well, yeah, That sucks for Ben Askren.
That sucks for Ben Askren.
He,
Oh my gosh.
That was a fucking.
He talked his way to it. It
was an awesome moment. Next up we got another fight. Listen, I'm gonna be honest. PFL. I'm not super familiar with PFL fight. I know some of the high names, but majority it's just they're I gotta.
Let's just get straight to the meat and potato then. Let's talk about Clay Collard. Let's talk about
go on a rant real quick.
Okay.
Hold on.
Here he goes. Here we go.
PFL and Bellator really need to step up their production.
They did mention that.
In terms of this. They did. In terms of this. When I tune in, for some reason, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm willing to accept that it's just me.
Mm-hmm.
But when I tune in to a PFL or a Bellator event, for some reason, I don't feel the energy. I don't feel like, whoa, this is must see. I can't take my eyes off of it. I can't move from my seat. I don't feel it. It doesn't radiate. With the UFC, it does. Like with the UFC, when I tune in, I'm like, okay, I get those butterflies, right? With the
Except when they're in the apex.
That is 100% true. That is exactly how I feel when I'm watching Bellator and PFL. That's how I feel.
That's why, because it's all smaller scale. There's less people. There's no energy in the building.
What I just need them to do is just the production needs to be better in terms of just the energy. The smart cage is fucking stupid, by the way, too. It's just dumb. Please get rid of it. All right, it's nobody really cares. The announcers need to be better in PFL. It's no disrespect to them. Who they've got? I think they've got a couple former fighters there. No disrespect to I think Kenny Florian and another fighter is on there, but you need excitement. Mauro Ranallo is an exciting ass voice. Bellator's announcer. That's a guy that they should be using in all events, right? It's just the excitement level needs to be there. Like when you look at the UFC, from everywhere you look, it's like top notch. You got Dana White, you've got a Joe Rogan, a DC, a John Anik, and those guys, right? Even
Bruce Buffer.
Even that Bruce Buffer, obviously legend. Even their backups and Bisping and Dominic Cruz and John Goodman and
Paul Felder,
Fitzgerald and Paul Felder. Even their backups are incredible.
Yeah, they do a solid.
You gotta reach that. That's where the PFL and Bellator have come short. Is that for me personally? Is that energy that I've got?
Where's Chael? Bellator's missing out on a Chael broadcast.
Chael is an announcer. I don't think Chael would do a commentating role, but
no, it doesn't gotta be a full-time gig. It could be a one-time backup gig like they do with Paul and Dominic, or like
listen, Chael Sonnen should be the face.
That would be so funny.
Chael should be the face. Chael should be like their Dana White.
Hey, I mean, you want to talk about guys that are going to bring eyes to the sport, guys that are going to bring attention, or you want to talk about star power. Bellator, they were doing the thing, having these old guys fight each other, but Chael Sonnen, the guy, capitalize on that, Dude, he's got basically a cult fan base. And, we all make the jokes and we all see the memes, but run with it. Run with that shit. You never know how far you'll get. You know what I'm saying?
Run with that shit.
Run with that shit.
Or what's his name said? Yoel Romero. Go.
Yeah, go.
And that was literally the build up to the Izzy fight where he did not go. He just stood there.
Neither of them really went anywhere. They kind of stood right there and
he did not go at all. All right, let's skip to the meat and potatoes. OAM, Olivier. I'm not even gonna butcher his name. OAM taking on Clay Collard. Adrian, what do you think?
Well, honestly, I like OAM. He's a fan favorite. I think Collard, this is a fight game. This is the fight game. Anything can fucking happen, yo. I'm gonna say that for every fight because it's so true. Nothing. You can have whoever fighting whoever. Even with the Kayla Harrison fight, I could pick Kayla Harrison to win. Anything can happen. The games have to be played. The fights have to be fought. If I were to pick right now, I'd have OAM winning, just based off of like a fan value hype. I personally haven't gotten too deep into his discography, neither too, but personally, watch the excitement in the world go crazy if OAM loses, because, like I said, he's too These two are guys that anything like these two are headlining this pay-per-view for a reason. So I personally think that OAM is going to win from the highlights and just the creativity from the striking. But honestly, anything can happen.
I do got to give a shout out to OAM. I mean, what a career he has built in the PFL, right? He's going on a win streak. How many wins he's got in a row here? He got
9. He's got 9 in a row.
Jesus Christ. I mean, bravo to him. I don't even know how to say it in French Canadian.
The Canadian gangster.
He is the Canadian gangster. So I think this is more going to probably take place standing, Adrian.
Yep.
I know OAM can take it to the ground and stuff like that, but I think he's starting to fall in love with the striking. Clay Collard is obviously more of a boxer-oriented fighter.
Yep.
I think this probably ends up staying on the feet, and I'm going to ride the OAM train, man. I'm going to ride that French-Canadian train. I think he's going to walk in there. I think he's going to finish Clay Collard. He's beaten their names in the PFL from a Stevie Ray to their golden goose that they stole from the UFC and Shane Burgos, who Dana still to this day will say his name is brought up. I don't know how we let him
fumble that.
Actually, up they fumbled that. Shane Burgos came in, was supposed to be the golden goose for the PFL. OAM said, "Nah, I'm that guy," and now he possibly could finish beat Clay Collard. If that's the case, OAM is. He's making a name for himself in the PFL. Listen, it ain't going to be a major name because if you say that name to casuals on the streets, they're not going to know who he is. But good for him. I do got to say that. Good for him. Good for him. Good for him. That's going to wrap up PFL 10 talk. And we'll move on real quick to the next topic of the show because there was a UFC event this past Saturday as well. Not very much, talk about, but the one thing we should talk about is Brendan Allen getting another finish by submission. This man is on a streak right now, Adrian. He's doing the damn thing, as the people say, Adrian. He is doing the damn thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's on a 4-fight submission win streak, right?
Yeah.
And he's got submissions over guys that I was told by experts in the sport, Adrian, were better than him on the ground. And he submitted both of them in Andre Muniz and Paul Craig. That's impressive shit.
And you're talking about a guy as dangerous as Paul Craig on his back and on that dangerous to throw up the submission game. Absolutely. Yeah. You don't just throw up for submissions on Paul Craig.
Especially when he's coming off that the TKO losses of a Chris Curtis and a Sean Strickland, which is actually a little interesting because both guys train out of the same gym, so there may be something to that. But he's just riding a 6-fight winning streak. Obviously, I said 4 fights in a row he's finished by submission. 2 guys that were submission experts in Paul Craig versus Paul Craig and Andre Muniz.
Sorry.
No, you're all right. And I think Brendan Allen is obviously he's ranked. We'll pull up his ranking now. I believe he was 10th before the fight. I don't think the rankings have come out. I think they come out tomorrow. So he's still 10th right now. What we got? We got Hermanson in front of him. We got Chimaev in front of him. We got Delice in front of him. We got Costa, Vittori, Cannonier. I don't think he fights anybody else in front of those guys. Who do you think Brendan Allen should fight next, Adrian?
It depends really because what's going on with Hamzat at middleweight is a question mark. I don't think they'll put that together anyway because it's not really the name value fight that Hamzat would want. But I think it would be a pretty interesting fight to see though. Costa, I think Costa is a good one because not only has, the whole situation happened with the whole pulling out and, we all know Dana's not a huge fan of last minute interruptions, especially with injuries that are not disclosed to the UFC. So pitting him against an up-and-coming guy like Brendan Allen would be something that is very UFC-esque. Costa has some name value, has some fans that could end up hopping over to the Brendan Allen bandwagon. So if I were to just take a quick glance and pick, it would be Paulo Costa when he does return. And if I were to say backup, I think Vittori would be a solid contender as well as a gatekeeper for Brendan Allen.
I like that a lot. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it. I know Whitaker is eyeballing. He wants Usman. I think a lot of people are in agreement that's the fight to make is Usman versus Whitaker.
Yeah, get one of those two back in the win column.
Yeah.
It would be good for the fan
You
bases.
got Costa's obviously there, right? I feel like the fight to make is Costa versus Chimaev. Like you rebooked that fight, but Delitse, I know he's supposed to be fighting in December, but I think his opponent pulled out that he was supposed to be fighting.
It just depends how soon they're going to be able to get Brendan Allen back into camp.
Yeah, he's definitely not going to be fighting in December. I can tell you that.
He did go 3 rounds, yeah. So I don't think that's going to go to.
There we go. Okay, so
I didn't bring
okay,
Paulo
so here
Costa.
we go. Delitse was supposed to fight Jared Cannonier December 2nd. Cannonier suffered an MCL tear, and he's out. And now Delitse is booked against Nasruddin Imavov for February. So he's going to be fighting Imavov in February. Wow, he's actually 7-12. That is a steep drop off there. Is Vettori fighting anybody anytime soon?
I don't think he is scheduled to fight anybody
up right now. Marvin, what have you been up to, Marvin?
Italian Stallion. I don't have any news on Vettori.
Nope.
Yeah, right. No fights booked for Vettori.
Okay, Vettori.
So that could happen. He is available.
He's
Whitaker hasn't slid from 3. So I don't think they'll give Whitaker up like that.
I think you got to give it to him. I think it's got to be Vettori versus Brendan Allen next. I think that's the right thing to do because Brendan Allen's on such a high win streak right now, and he's finished 4 guys in a row. And you know how the matchmakers love the finishes. So I think that's a great fight to make there. If not, I easily see them probably giving him Hermanson, which is going to be a less enticing fight. But I could see them giving him Jack Hermanson, if not Vettori. Because I could also see them booking.
You don't want to throw him to the wolves too soon either. You want to make sure you cultivate the fighter and make sure he's ready as well.
I think he's ready for it. I think you throw him out. I don't think Vettori is really the wolves. I think that they might be looking at maybe Chimaev versus Vettori. That's why they might hold him out. But that'll be interesting. Brendan Allen, congratulations, man. You're doing a bang up job, man. I gotta give it to you out there.
People don't just beat Paul Craig. They'll look at the number and they'll look at it and be like, but people don't just beat guys like that. These top 5 guys. That's why I say the wolves like that when I talk about Vettori. You don't just dominate a top. You don't just end up in a top 5 in a weight class in the UFC. You don't just do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like these guys could go anywhere else and end up being champions. So it's crazy.
Yeah. And listen, I can't wait because we've got some banger fights ahead of it. Obviously, UFC is taking this week off, but then we're riding it back up in December 2nd, back in Austin, not in the Apex. Let's go, Adrian. No Apex.
Oh man, I thought I know you're so sad about that, dude.
I fucking hate it. Actually, what sucks is we're gonna be right back in it right afterwards. Or no, wait. I thought they were gonna be in China for that.
Isn't that the DSV League?
I think they're going to be in the China for December 9th. That's Valashvili. What do you mean?
No.
Sharukian and Dariush, you mean?
Dariush, yes.
Dariush and Sharukian is going to be December 2nd. That's exciting. And then we got the pay-per-view, obviously, to round out the year, which is just a stacked pay-per-view from top to bottom. But, big news of popping. We're going to be covering it for the time being in months to come. It's going to be exciting. PFL, obviously, acquiring Bellator, UFC making big moves. It's going to be an exciting time. But that is going to wrap up this episode 142 of the Wise Guys podcast, discussing all things from PFL all the way to Brendan Allen's big win on Saturday night. Please, if you watch this long, give us a like, thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, share the content, and comment along with us and tell us your thoughts and opinions on what we discussed today. Follow us on our social medias, the Wise Guy stuff, my personal Adrian's. Links are in the description. And it's going to wrap
appreciate
us
you guys.
up.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. We always appreciate you. We always appreciate you. We love you.
Taking the ride with us. Yep, of course, man.
Taking away downtown, walking fast, faces passing, I'm homebound. Now it's time to end us up.
Yeah,
We out of here. I've been Brandon Capozziello. That was Adrian Pineres.